So we have just bought a 2022 S1000Rr full carbon, and it's a heck of a lot worse than it actually looks. So it's had a huge crash on the right-hand side, and I'm probably an idiot for buying this bike. But that's not the worst of it. It gets dumber. So aside from the good points where everything on this bike is virtually carbon fiber, there's a really bad, glaringly obvious problem. And it's this here. So this frame protector has done the exact opposite, and it's broken our frame. But there's something else I just noticed. Come with me. This here is engine oil, and it's fresh. I've had the bike parked here since the last 10 minutes. So that tells me I've got some form of a leak. So let's get it inside and investigate. So I took a risk on this bike knowing that it was pretty well damaged, but I thought to myself, you know what? We've got 20,000 subscribers now. It's about time I start taking YouTube seriously. But I think I might have bitten off more than I can chew, because I'm pretty sure the bike runs, so let's check that. I have seen a video of it running, so. Bike runs, so that's a bonus. It doesn't appear as though I've got any errors on the dash as well, but we've got a huge issue with the frame, and it looks like we've got an issue with the sump. So come and check this out. So you can see here where it's hit the right side of the bike. So the headers have actually taken a massive hit right here, and that's followed back and taken a little tiny little chip out of the sump just here where the bolt goes in. So I have a feeling this is what's leaking, because if I put my finger there, there's fresh oil on my finger. Now the frame crack is not my biggest worry, because I've got a solution. Right over here, I bought a new frame from a friend of mine. So this bike had also had a low side, but absolutely no issues with the frame. So that's sorted. Well, I say that's sorted, but I've still got to strip the whole bike down to pretty much nothing, replace the frame, and then go from there, which will leave me with a spare frame that just needs to be re-welded. So maybe I can sell that and recoup a few dollars. But we're gonna do this bike a little bit different to what I'd normally do for you guys, and I'm actually gonna strip it down. As I strip it down, I'm gonna let you know all the parts that we're gonna recoup and try and sell in order to buy more performance parts. So we'll keep a running tally as to what this build's actually costing. So that brings me on to the good points. Carbon, 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 and, well, carbon, and the whole belly pan is also carbon if I can fix it. So this bike is absolutely loaded with goodies. It looks like it's had the full carbon M package thrown at it, along with some other M details. So it's got the M brakes on both sides. It doesn't have the M calipers though. It's got the standard brake calipers. It's also got the M footrests, so they're pretty awesome. And to top it off, the biggest carbon piece on the bike, the wheels, front and rear carbon wheels. And there's only a tiny little issue with the front one, and I don't even know if I can see it anymore, but it had a tiny little graze on the edge of it. So I think we can make an absolute carbon monster out of this thing. So I think first things first, let's get this bike stripped down and take stock of what we've actually got, because I've got a feeling I can fix these fairings. So the real question is going to be, can I salvage this fairing, or do I need to drop $2,000 on a race fairing? And if I did, would it actually look better with all the carbon? it was bound to happen. I've had a good run so far, taking stuff off, and a part of my head's going, do I sell it? Do I replace it with a race fairing? I'm still not sure yet. I've got to do the numbers. But unfortunately, I've just had a massive loss, probably $1,000 loss, because the headlights are broken. So the actual mount that holds the two headlights together has snapped. I don't know if I can buy that separately and put them back together. It might be worth 800, but it's definitely not worth 1,000 anymore because, well, not only is the mount broken, but the headlights themselves have got tiny little cracks in them. So I think maybe they're reduced down to a much smaller amount, maybe a couple $100 each or overall, I'm not sure. But it is coming apart quickly, and I've now got a fair bit more stuff I've just found that I can actually sell as well, so take a look. So just in the back here, I've got the immobilizer alarm unit, so that can go, it's probably around about $200 or $300. I've got the ABS module, that's probably another $200 or $300. And I thought to myself, maybe all this carbon on the back, maybe we're better off selling all of that as well as the carbon on the front. But I'm gonna keep stripping it down, see what else I can get off it, things like the horn, the lights, anything that we don't need. Yeah, and just keep plugging away at it. So I'm just going to pop this Van Diemen exhaust off because it's all scraped. It's all scraped down the side here. But I think the scratches on it aren't bad enough to warrant a complete new system. I've once, in the past, I've put protection on the back here, an RNG protector that goes around here that saves you if you're sliding on your right-hand side. So I'm going to get one of those for here, and then we're going to try and sand this all back. So I'm just going to take this off, and I'm going to take it to one of my very, very friendly sponsors, and he's going to see if he can restore it for me. You can see here, it's got all of these scratches and marks. I think we can probably get these out. Okay, so that brings me onto the table of stuff that I think we're probably gonna sell because I haven't made my mind up yet. I've got, my phone has two full big spreadsheets on it with two scenarios. First scenario is I sell all of this carbon and I just buy a race fairing and I then buy some extra carbon. Second scenario is I fix some of this fairing where the carbon is all busted and we still use it because, let's face it, this is a full carbon fairing pretty much, and I could make some of it exposed and the parts that are damaged, I can make them not exposed. So that's an option as well. But let's go through the prices. So just here, we've got an Ilmberger tail tidy. This is $575 just for the tail tidy, brand new. So with a couple of tail lights on it, it's probably worth about, let's say $450. We've got a rear vision mirror, that's $250. This is all OEM stuff. So the belly pan, these are $1,600 brand new. So even if I could get $400 for that damaged, that would be fine. The side fairings with the inlets, the carbon inlets, all up, all of this side fairings are probably around about $600, including the carbon. We've got the carbon nose. These are, I think, $680 brand new. Again, it's Ilmberger carbon. So this probably maybe $400. And then we've got the lights. So I was a bit disappointed about these lights. I wanted to get over $1,000. I reckon for parts, we could probably sell them for about $300. So those are the two scenarios. I haven't made my mind up yet, but I have made my mind up on some stuff we're keeping over here. Okay, so this is mostly the front of the bike. We've got the seat. We're gonna cover this seat, probably like a Louis Moto suede cover or something really funky. I've got the tank cover, so that's gonna be the actual color of the bike. I've got these side panels for the tank, which are in really good condition. They've just got a tiny little crack there, but I think I can fix that. So both sides of the tank are gonna have that nice carbon effect down it. This is perfect. It's pretty much untouched and it's OEM, nice and black. We're gonna keep that. The carbon tail, top and bottom, this is worth an absolute mint. All we need to do is buy the center rear seat cowl for it. So I'll get probably a non-carbon one of them. We'll paint that the color of the bike. And then of course the sides for that. So once we peel off these stickers and repaint it all, I think the back of the bike is going to have some nice carbon accents. The front of the bike is going to have some carbon accents around the tank, the wings that we're buying for it, the guards that we're buying for it. I think this is probably the way to go. So now I've just got to price up a race fairing and see if that offsets the price of actually selling all that carbon that we may not need. That's it. One ABS module off. That's at least a kilo. Now I've just got to take all the brake lines off because we're going to be replacing these with non-ABS lines. So again, something to mop up. You're going to get fluid everywhere otherwise. Here we go, one line off for the rear. Two lines off for the rear. Whilst I'm taking stuff off, I might as well take this evap off as well. I'm pretty sure, from memory, this is super easy on the Beamer. I think I just run extension lines from these two breathers up to the tank. There we go, one evap canister gone. Okay, so now we just got to follow this top hose, pull it out from behind the frame, and that's going to take you to the actual sensor. So the sensor, we still need to buy the block off for it. They're I was going to say $25, $30. We'll buy one of them. For now, I'm just going to unplug it so we can fully get rid of it. There we go, unplugged. And this, all I need to do is put a plug in the end of that, and that's what seals it off. Another thing gone. Okay, in the spirit of deleting stuff, I'm just gonna take the stand off. It's another thing I can sell straight away. Like it's gonna get me, I don't know, maybe $150. Every little bit I get helps me build this bike. Job done. Check out that. It's got like an R&G Racing extra size foot on it in case you want to park in the mud. Right, so I better get busy ordering some deletes. I've got to order a stand delete, evap delete, maybe an AIS, so a secondary air delete, an ABS delete, headlight and tail light deletes. I'm gonna guess about $1,000 worth of deletes. It's a lot of deletes. I wish I knew how to make them myself. So a massive amount done today. The bike is stripped to the point where I don't want to go much further until we make a big decision about the frame. So I'm gonna get the bike off to a frame specialist this week and just for a second opinion on exactly what we need to do with that. I've ordered a sump, so a replacement sump for the engine. I've stripped out pretty much everything here that I don't want. Now I've just got to make the decision about the fairing. Race fairing or fix the current carbon fairing. So yeah, massive progress and heaps more to come. Thanks for watching, like, subscribe, you know the drill. So S1000Rrs are incredibly expensive bikes and this one is proving to be no different. So after buying this thing as a wreck, thinking I'd got myself an awesome bargain, only to find out that the frame was cracked. So this frame protector has done the exact opposite, and it's broken our frame. And the oil sump too, so I needed two hugely expensive parts. But I've got some good news. I've managed to get the frame fixed for 350 bucks, super cheap, and it looks like it's brand new. So hopefully my luck is about to change because we've got a massive episode planned. We've got to get all of this gear on the bike and then hopefully get this baby rolling by the end of the episode. So fingers crossed, let's get into it. So first up, we've got a huge decision to make, what to do with this spare frame. And I'm hoping you, the viewer, can help me make that decision. Do I sell it and try and recoup some funds for this build? Or do we use it to build a complete bike from scratch? Now there's a thought. Now in order to actually get the frame fixed, I didn't want the welder putting massive amounts of energy through the frame when all the electrics were still connected. So we're gonna connect everything back up, and at least that way I'm gonna get some stuff off the table and we'll get the bike running again. So if you remember on the last episode, we removed the evap canister off the left side of the bike, but I didn't have one of these. This is the actual evap plug. So last of the electrical devices to go on. Oh no, I dropped it. Hope I didn't break it. And fingers crossed, this should just be a straight plug and play into here. Job done. Just need to tie that off just there, and that's another electrical delete done. I also deleted the ABS. However, I didn't actually put the ABS delete plug on. So this has come from L2M Alpha Racing. So thanks S1K Racing. I'll put a link in the description or in the video as to where you can buy a whole bunch of performance parts for your S1K or M1K. Anyway, this should just be a straight delete module plug and play. So that's done. All I need to do is tie that off with a couple of zip ties just so it doesn't fall anywhere and make a noise when I'm riding. And fingers crossed, this is one of the last things we need to do. This is the stand delete plug. So we removed the stand on the first episode. This is the actual delete. So this is the little thing that's got like a closed circuit. So it's got the little resistor at the top. Simple plug and play. There we do. All we need to do now is tie this up somewhere so that it doesn't get in the way. So fingers crossed, I've got everything connected back the way it should be. I've got the deletes on, I've got the battery in, I've got the ECU on, I've got whatever that computer thing there is, and the screen's on. I think we're good. Brilliant, excellent, cool. Don't worry about those faults, we'll worry about them later. So now we can actually move onwards and upwards. And what I'm thinking I might do first, before I tackle this huge mountain of work of carbon fiber fixing I've got to do, is actually just try and get rid of as much off this table as possible, because it is slightly overwhelming looking at this many parts and thinking I've got to put it all on the bike. So let's start with some of the simple stuff. So I figure the easiest thing to do is carbon fiber. RPM Carbon have once again come to the party with this bike, and we have dropped thousands of dollars on carbon, because I figure we might as well get carbon that has the matching twill as the BMW M Carbon that's made by Ulmberger Carbon. That's a lot of carbon words in one sentence, but let's get some of this installed and see how sexy it looks on this bike. We've got to clean the rest of the back of the bike before we can put it on, but the very first thing that we can do is the front guard. Okay, so it actually looks like I've completely forgotten to order the rear hugger, and making this huge big RPM order that cost me thousands, I just must have been doing it too late at night. So I'm gonna have to get the rear hugger later, get that delivered in the next couple of weeks. But what I can do is get the frame covers on, get the swing arm covers on, and then start to build the carbon back up on the bike. Pretty good. And this stuff goes on pretty easily. You can either use 3M double-sided tape and plenty of it, or you can use a special type of silicone. So this is actually coming together quite quickly. We've got like most of the carbon on the bike now. Obviously I've still got to order that rear hugger, but we've got the frame guards on, the swing arm guards on, we've got the front guard on. It's starting to look more carbon-y, carbon-esque, carbon-y, whatever you want to call it. I've got this sprint filter. I want to put this on before I put the tank back on to test it. I got this from Motor Garage. So if you need any performance parts, hit up Motor Garage. I'll put the link below. Let's chuck it in. That's actually pretty clean. It almost looks brand new, but it's cheap and it's paper. So, sprint filter. I think this is a, not sure if it's a P08 or what it is. Oh, look at that. Damn sight better. Another job done. It's too easy. I won't say that because shit will go wrong. It's not too easy. So we're sort of doing two jobs at once. I've actually got my lovely wife outside and she is prepping the old fairings, the OEM fairings. She's taking the stickers off, she's cleaning them, getting all that done. And then at her request, can I do that thing where I squeeze your head? Yeah, there, squeeze your head. At her request, I'm actually gonna move on to the switchgear and I'm gonna try and switch out the switchgear. And there's a reason behind that. I feel I need to be transparent because she sells everything that I take off the bike. There's an old saying that as soon as it hits the ground, she's got it on eBay. So how much do you stand to make off this switchgear, this OEM switchgear left and right? Let's hear the truth. How much?
It's my part of the business, not your business.
So it's not, you're not even going to tell me what you're going to sell it for? No. That is ruthless. What are you going to spend the money on? Hey?
Clothes.
Clothes and shoes. Clothes and shoes. Guess I better get to work and get this off. Now there is actually a secret to how you get the left-hand switchgear off. You've got to pull this back a little bit and then there's a little nut just inside that. So you want to look for that nut and then unscrew it and that bolt will come the whole way out and then you can slide this whole sleeve off. And then you can take the screws off the back of that, unplug it and pull it off as well. Is it frustrating? It's good, therapeutic. The bolt is now out, so this should all be loose. I should just be able to pull this all the way out. And I'm pretty sure I just unclip the electrical connector here, and then we should be able to put the new Jet Prime stuff on. So look, I don't know if I've done this right, but I'm pretty sure you've got to keep this here and you actually take the sleeve off just here and then you reconnect, and then you actually end up with almost two sets of switchgear on the left. You end up with the adjuster and then the selector, and then you end up with all the race buttons. So fingers crossed I've done it right. Now I've just got to put that original bolt back through there, through that little hidden spot, just to hold that all just there, hold it all in spot and move on to the other side. So I've actually half given up on the clutch side switchgear because I'm not quite sure. I think I need to download the instructions and be a real man and just admit my failures. But this side, the throttle side, looks awesome. Look at that. And it's so easy to put on too. You just take the old start stop button off and then you just slide these over as like covers. And one side's got the buttons in it, the other side's just a nice, neat little cover. And then you take the next 10 years of your life doing up this screw, because you don't have the right tools and you went to Bunnings for your tools instead of some proper tool shop. Done. So look at that, much, much better. And that looks awesome up there. Here we go, pop around, have a look at that. Look at that, that looks very, very cool. I haven't put it back in place yet, the clip on, but how freaking awesome is that? Everything's at your fingertips, nice and integrated. So the problem I'm having is over here, and I just don't know for the life of me how you are supposed to get this handle back on, considering it needs to be plugged in here, and you've got all this extra stuff here with another plug there, and somehow it's got to fit. When I put that on properly, somehow it's got to fit under this. Doesn't work. So I need to download the instructions and figure it out properly. So I'm gonna leave that for a minute. I'll finish off this front and then I might actually put the start stop button in. So switchgear is mostly done. Start stop button works, let's check that. Perfect, excellent, we've got power, everything's working there. Only thing I haven't done is just finish off exactly how I'm gonna mount this with this stupid little piece of plastic that's remaining on the toggle that you have to keep. So, the key is hidden away in the front there. Now what I thought I might do is, because I'm on a timeline and I really wanna get this bike ready and up and running and working by the end of the episode, and I've got roughly 4 days to do it in because there's a track day on Friday, is I might look at what I've got in terms of the carbon that's not damaged and see if I can get any of that back on the bike. So like the front and the rear sort of sub pieces. And then we're gonna have to tackle the elephant in the room, which is that cracked sump. But luckily for me over here, I have a new sump. So in this box, I've got a brand new sump for the S1000Rr. So thank you to Julian at Morgan & Wacker for getting this so quickly. And there we go. And this will be probably a new thing for me because I've never tackled this much mechanical work. So the other thing I've done is I've got all new bolts, and I've also got some high heat RTV silicone just to lock it all in place. So yeah, first things first, the carbon, let's do it. So I got something else today from BMW as well. I got the replacement piece that goes on the back. So if I can build this up again, maybe I can actually get the back of the bike looking like it's at least half completed. Carbon on, carbon on, carbon. How good does that look? I just got to put a few little bolts in it and that should hold it all in place. So we've got this pretty cool order from Alif Performance. I think it's ALIF Performance. Again, I'll put a link. And this guy makes carbon, like what are they called? Light block-offs, light inserts. But the problem is it's really hard to get on with all the OEM gear. So somehow I've got to manipulate the plastic to get it up and over without snapping anything. And that's not going to be easy. Oh, there we go. I just dropped heaps of it off. Actually, that wasn't so hard after all. So I've just got to secure it in place somehow. And that's pretty much how it looks. It's fake headlights for racing bikes. How cool is that? Carbon, 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 and carbon. And it's all the same twill as well. Right, let's get that screwed in. So I've actually mocked up the bike. I've got all the fairings back on except those tiny little carbon pieces that sit up there, just so I can get a feel for how it looks. And it's starting to look pretty shit hot. I'm pretty pretty keen to see how it's gonna look with the actual color, the whitish, creamyish color against all this carbon. And then I've also learned something else. So come in here and I'll show you what I've just learned. My problem with the switchgear is actually pretty straightforward. If you have a look at this switchgear here, none of these say heated grips, and this is a heated grip. This plug here is the only plug it says that I need to plug in. So that means that this plug over the other side that I was having trouble with, trying to get that clamp on, is completely redundant. So that means I only need one plug, so I can take the other plug off, I can put the switchgear on properly, another job done. So next up, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna strip this bike again. I know, kind of pointless, but at least I got to see how it looked. And then I'm gonna prep the fairings, but before I do that, I'm gonna strip this sump off and bite the bullet and do a job that scares the crap out of me. So check it out, I've managed to fix it. That is awesome. And you can still use this little dongle thing, however you use that. I really don't know, God knows. But then you've got all the buttons here, and then you've got the start stop, and then you've got the integrated buttons over there. So that is wicked. Okay, so you could say I am just a little bit nervous. Geez, these bolts are not done up very tight, hey? They must be like 10 Newton meters or something. So I've removed the exhaust from here back, and I'm hoping I can just get to all these bolts. I don't know what I'm gonna do about this stripped one, and then just drop the sump down. I'm hoping it's that simple. Murphy's Law it won't be, in which case I've got a professional I can call. Fingers crossed. I don't often pull engines apart. I don't know if you can call this pulling an engine apart, but I don't often do this on my bikes. So this is definitely a new thing for me. So I ended up having to loosen off the header bolts just so I could move the headers out of the way to get to those couple of front bolts. But then after that, the sump almost fell down by itself. It was actually quite simple. And then to put it back in, I just replaced the O-ring on one of the breather tubes coming out of the sump. And then black silicone all around it, put it back up into place and torque the bolts down neatly. So I'm pretty stoked with myself, to be honest. I'm not even a mechanic, I'm just a YouTuber, but I managed to take the sump off a bike, and not only that, a modern bike, and refit it. And I'm pretty sure I've done it correctly. I've even torqued everything down to spec. And now we're gonna move on to some more fun stuff, because I've actually got to try and fit these. I've got to try and fit the carbon wings we've got, so let's check them out. Because these things came from RPM Carbon last week, and they look absolutely sick. So not bad. How freaking cool does that look? It's actually coming together quite nicely. I've stripped it apart again because we're now onto the fairings, and we've got some fixes to do first. So I've had to do a little bit of gluing just to glue some brackets back in place. I'm going to reinforce those with fiberglass, so don't worry your pretty little faces about super glue. I will be using fiber and resin. I've taken the tank off. Tank is off now. I'm about to empty that into a fuel container because it's full of fuel. I've taken the fuel cap off, and we're pretty much good to sand this all down. So all of these gray plastics are just going to get sanded down with probably like 240 grit just on the machine. That's all it really needs. Maybe I'll do a hand sand at 600, and then we're going to undercoat it all. And then we're going to paint it. We might not get it painted in this episode, but after that, really all we've got to do is fix the carbon, which should take me about a day. I don't know why I'm talking like a news presenter, but I am. And put the bike back together, dyno it, put the slicks on, and we're good to go to the track. So let's get to it. Let's get this tank emptied, let's get the fuel pump out of it, and start sanding. It's probably a little bit late at night to start sanding, so I'll leave it till tomorrow. But yeah, let's get into it. Okay, hold the phone on sanding for a second because something else very cool just turned up in the mail. So I want to open this and show you what it is, just because I think it's going to be very cool. I'll be waiting for it for like 3 weeks. So let's check it out and see if I actually got what I ordered and does it look any good. I'll just rip the box. Here's a hint, it's coming from Canada. Can you guess? Anyone who knows their stuff should know what this is. That's a really cool box, actually. Some people have whole channels devoted to unboxing, but ready? I'm going to do an unboxing special. Done. Louis Moto seat cover. Now I made sure I washed my hands because I knew what this was. Look at that. That is awesome. I'm pretty sure that's suede, like Alcantara suede. Very, very cool. So, how cool does that look? I have finally gone and bought something which I think I absolutely need in order to take my builds to the next level. Now, if you remember in some of my previous builds, I used a tent to paint my bikes. That doesn't cut it when you're trying to sell $20,000 bikes. So I've taken the next step and bought a 6 meter by 3 meter blow up spray booth. I hope this is going to work and not blow away in the wind. The biggest problem I had with my spray booth is that air was not escaping and I was getting dust settling on my fairings. So this is a blower. It circulates air around the tent and it has, I think, a filtering system, and this just keeps the tent blowing up. So the real problem is going to be, once I unpack this and use it once, can I fold it back up to fit inside this bag? I very much doubt it. 2 more hours of prep and we've finally got everything outside in the sun and drying. So if anyone tells you that building bikes is easy, tell them to shove it up their bum, because this shit takes a long time. Like, I would say I've probably spent 4 or 5 hours already just prepping, sanding, masking, wet sanding, and I've still got to lay down my first coat of paint. So that's where we're at. There's not even that much to do. But the cool thing is now we've got that paint booth up and it's looking pretty sick. Just to give you some perspective as to how big this thing is, let me show you. Look at that. That is massive. Like, that's most of my backyard. And yeah, so now I just gotta wait for that stuff to dry. As soon as it's dry, I'll get it set up in the paint booth, start mixing up some paint, and then start laying down probably 3 coats of color and then 3 coats of clear. Wish me luck. So our paint room is all prepped and ready. We've got everything laid out. We've got a couple of pieces hung up, but it's just a couple of degrees too warm to paint. So it does cool down a little bit when you actually pressurize it and run that other airflow through it. But what I thought I'd do now is actually get some of the carbon ready. So we should be able to get this carbon fixed. Well, I'd like to be able to fix it anyway. So what I'm gonna do, we'll let that light readjust. What I'm gonna do is I've got my fiberglass kit, all my fiberglass gear, and I'm going to basically, on the back of each piece, I'm going to fiberglass reinforce the back, and then on the front, I've got some new carbon fiber where we can lay down some new weave straight across it. So fingers crossed I don't screw it up, but luckily it's got a big BMW decal going over it anyway, so it doesn't matter if I don't get 100% perfect, but as I said, I would like to improve the quality of my builds, so this is a good chance for me to try one of those small things and see if I can nail it. Our sponsor, Matt from Clean Ride Brisbane, also just dropped off this. Remember this exhaust, the Van Diemen? It was fully massively scratched up. Now look at it, it's all been polished. Yes, it's still got a couple of scratches along the top, but we can actually put this back on the bike now. And that is gonna look sick. So what I might do is I'm gonna get one of those protective R&G wraps that go around the back here. And that should be exactly what we need to finish up that side of the bike. So I'm just gonna mix this all up on a 2-to-1 ratio, 2-to-1 of paint. Let me show you the color of the paint first. It's pretty cool. It actually comes out as like almost like a creamy silver. It's a really, really cool color. This has got to go. We can't be that quiet on the racetrack. Oh, if I can get it in there. Come on. It's coming out. It's going to be a little bit louder. Oh shit. Oh shit. Yeah, boy. Right, let's fire it up and see how it sounds. Scratch that. I realized I don't have a tank on there. That's kind of critical when you want fuel to go boom boom. So it's the next morning. I came down thinking, okay, all the paint's going to be hard. It's going to be done. And then I thought I might just top up the radiator. And now look, we've got a leak right here on the edge of the top radiator. Now that is not cheap because that's plastic, and I don't think that can be repaired because it's got to be under pressure. So I'm probably up for another $1,000 just to repair that. I don't think there's any way that I can repair that. And it's a pretty big job. I've got to take the radiator apart again. But I think I'll still go ahead and do a fairing mock-up anyway. I just want to get a feel for how it looks. So let's get that done, push the bike out in the sun, get a couple of happy snaps, and then try and tackle the radiator another day. So what an episode. This bike is coming along awesome. I love the color, I love everything about it. And we've got through a lot of good stuff on this episode. We've put a lot of stuff on the bike, but we've also had a couple of massive red flags. And the first of those is this whole front section. This front wheel, I've got a suspicion that it's actually buckled, and it's a carbon wheel. So that's $2,000 to $3,000 if that's the case. We've also got the radiator. We've got a leak in the radiator. There's another $1,000 to fix. So I could well be in the red, as in way behind on this budget, at least 3 or 4 grand. So the major stuff we've got left to do is the bike needs a tune. We need to figure out the front wheel. We're gonna fix the radiator. We need to spend about 6 hours prepping and detailing all the carbon because at the moment it's just held together with fiberglass. So we've still got a lot to do. We've got some more carbon to order for the rear as well, the hugger, and then this tailpiece just needs to be actually fitted to the bike. So we're waiting on that connection part to come later today. But that's around about it for this episode. Thanks so much for watching. One last thing I'm going to try and do is start it and see if it actually runs. Try not to blow it up. And fingers crossed, this sounds awesome because we've taken that silencer out. I think the battery might be flat. Welcome back to the channel. In this episode, keep your fingers crossed, we are going to finish this bike. So the theme of this bike has been simple and subtle, and we've been trying to harness that M look across the bike. So little touches of M color elements throughout, some M decals, and then of course we've got our massive amount of carbon, including our M package suite of things like rear sets, levers, etc. So we've still got a bit of work to go on the bottom fairing, some more M decals there, but other than that, it's starting to actually come along. And first up today, we're off to Motor Garage to get these tires changed over and something else pretty cool. So now we're at Motor Garage. We've got 3 pretty straightforward jobs to do here. We've got a set of Michelin TD slicks to go on this bad boy. We've got 255s at the rear and 120s at the front. So they are going on these beautiful carbon wheels. We've also got the replacement front disc. So one of our front discs, the one on the left side, was completely warped. So we got a replacement OEM Brembo front disc for that. So that's going on. A friend of ours was selling these Litec chain adjusters, which are a beautiful color of blue. And they really just add to the blue color that we've got in this scheme throughout this bike. So they're going on, and these are super easy to adjust. Now with the jobs all done at Motor Garage, those were probably the easiest jobs for this video. Next up, it's gonna get a lot harder because I've got to take all of the carbon pieces off the bike and start restoring it. And let me tell you, it's definitely not easy. So after stripping the bike down, I've basically got to focus most of my time on this belly pan because it's basically been broken in half. Now, my plan here is to make a strip through the middle where our decals are going to go, and I'm going to try and repair that as best as possible. So I've got this extra carbon twill weave, and what I'm going to use that for is plugging and replacing sections which are completely just missing. I'm then gonna lay that with a coat of resin, let that resin set, and then start sanding that resin back. Now that the fiberglass is actually just waiting to cure, and I don't even know if I've done it properly, I don't even know if that plastic kitchen wrap is gonna hold it. So I'm just gonna check it as it starts to cure and sort of just lift it up like this every now and then and just make sure it's actually holding and not burning straight through the plastic. So far, because it hasn't started curing, it looks like it's holding, and it's nice and flat, it looks nice and good. But what I thought I'd try now, because I've got to wait for that to cure, is I need to fix this angle of this piece here. I need to bring it back to there, and you can see it's got a crack right here. So I probably should have done this before I painted it. Lesson learned. I'll probably end up doing it again on one other bike though, but what I want to do is I want to try and heat it up on this side without heating it too much and just see if I can bend the plastic back. I don't think it'll work. I think if anything, I'll melt the paint on the other side, but it's worth giving it a go. That's actually working. So you can see both sides. There's distinctly a line through the middle here we're gonna have to do something with. And I've got a couple of ideas. You can see on this side it's straight through the middle as well. So, what I'm thinking is we retain the carbon look along the bottom for around about 1.5 inches down here, and then up through here, we run the same decal like that, but just in small sections. So what that pretty much means is I can paint just outside the edge, black and black, and that means we get a nice consistent run of color. Now I've just got to figure out how to do it. So it's not perfect, but once I smooth this all up, all the carbon's gonna flow nicely into a flat black. And then with the color, again, probably just through the middle here, maybe even just a little bit less, maybe just there, just on this piece here. Got a few options, let's get to it. Next up for this beauty, we have got a Louis Moto seat cover. And this, well, it's got the red, white, and blue of the BMW logo, so it's gonna look pretty sick. But it's got a pain in the ass job. You've got to take all of these staples out of the original seat before you can actually put the new seat cover on. I could cheat and just put it over the top and staple it in place, but you would all know. So I won't. I'm gonna take every staple out painstakingly. I'm not gonna show you that process, mainly because I'm not gonna do it. I'm gonna get my wife to do it. And yeah, let's get back to actually putting the seat cover on that part. So this might look like it's really easy. So once the seat cover is on, we've got to staple it in place, but let me tell you, it is not. You've got to be quite methodical. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put probably 3 staples in here, and that'll hold it, and then I can stretch it properly and get it into the back corners. I'm just got to make sure you don't tear it at the same time. You probably need a few hands. Make sure you don't staple yourself. Again, fiddly work. I have a new appreciation for people that do this for a living. And quickly get a couple in around it just to support it so that it doesn't tear across that initial staple. You can see how the staple I put in first has already started to tear. That's how quickly it tears. So now that that end's in, it's got 3 staples holding it. I just want to make sure it's nice and straight. I can see there's a bit more white than there is here, so I want to try and move it across a little bit, manipulate it, and get it nice and even, because once I put it in place, there is literally no coming back. So that feels pretty straight. Something else I can do, and I've never done this on a bike before, but these are going to be very cool. You remember we did an ABS delete? Well, I've got Alpha Racing ABS, non-ABS brake lines. So these can go on now as well. As soon as I put these on, and again, we're still waiting for that hardener to dry, that body filler, I've also got to remove the faulty radiator. A new radiator, which should hopefully be arriving either today or tomorrow, because today's Monday and I need to get this bike dynoed on Thursday. So I need to get this radiator switched out as well. It's a big job. I probably won't film the whole thing, but basically it's not too hard to get it out, but it is fiddly. So I've just got to take all the hoses off, drain the radiators, decouple them so the lower one is no longer attached to the upper one, take any of these pipes out, and then once they all come apart, I've just got to get the line, so the clutch line has to come through this little hole here. So I've got to detach the clutch line, pull it back up through, take the cap off, take the spare reservoir off, take the pipes off this side as well, and then the radiator should just slide straight out. And I say should because shit never goes easy for me. So it's going to be a decent sized job, but it's pretty boring watching me replace a radiator. So I'm just going to sort of skip to the part where I rebuild that. But what I am going to do is get these brake lines on now, because these are going to be very cool. So let's get to it. Now I'm hoping this is as simple as it looks. It's got some extra, what are they called? The little thingamajigs, the copper washers, crush washers. So I should just be able to put it straight on. I mean, this should be really easy. Maybe I just got to zip tie it in place once it's on and job done. I just don't know which way around that goes. I think like that. Rear brakes are bled. Another job done. This is, I was going to say too easy, but something will go wrong, I guarantee you. Now, I said I would not film the radiator install, but we've had a setback and I feel like I need to be transparent. So let's just start by saying the radiator was delivered in a plastic bag. I mean, come on, an expensive part arriving in a plastic bag. What did they think was going to happen? Obviously, it's broken. So the clips which actually hold the radiator in place just here have actually broken. So they're of no good. So what I've done is I have taken my old radiator, unriveted the top part here, which actually holds it all in place, because that was fine, that was perfect. I've taken the 6 rivets out of the top, and I've got our new radiator. I've also taken the top part off, and I'm going to join the two together. I just hope I haven't drilled too deep into the top of that radiator in those holes just there. And fingers crossed, I'll take this over to Brett at Motor Garage tonight, and we'll see if we can marry those two back up, join them back up, make those bits love one another again. And fingers crossed we'll have that done, because I think that's something I really need to get done so I can feel like I'm getting some progress here. I have slowed down on the fairing. I'm going to give myself another day because I want to make sure it's perfect. I don't want to half-ass this job, because I think I'm going to need to lay probably another 2 or 3 coats of that body filler on once I sand each coat back. So the last thing I want to do is rush that, end up with patinas all through the actual base coat that I'm putting in there, because that section through there is going to be black. So I want to get this right. So let's get this radiator fixed, get the radiator back on, and then I'll get back onto the fairings, because Thursday night's quickly approaching for dyno. So we're now making some progress. Radiator is back on, so I wasn't going to film that because it's so easy. I've just got to hope that it doesn't leak, because I've got to hope I didn't drill too deep before riveting back on. So I'm going to run the bike up to temperature, make sure the fan runs, make sure it's not pissing out fluid everywhere. And when I come to our fairing, I've got to do another coat. So I'm going to fix up all these parts here. I'm going to put some more filler in. We're going to do a second round of filler and just see if we can sort of improve upon this look. There's some real rough sections I want to clean up. So that's the next job. That can dry overnight. And then fingers crossed, tomorrow, what are we, Wednesday tomorrow, we should be all right just to put the bike back together in preparation for dyno on Thursday. Fingers crossed nothing else goes wrong. Made this one a little bit weaker just so it sets slower, so I've got more working time. So I probably won't go hard in the next few hours, which means tonight I'm hanging up the gloves as soon as I put this on. And I know what some people are saying, I should be using a proper applicator, but that's for amateurs. And yes, I'm putting it on really thick, and there's a reason, so I don't have to do it a million times. So if there's one thing I've learnt in this whole bike building process after 10 bikes now, is that shortcuts in the build bite you in the ass at the end. And it also looks really bad for your channel too. So if you just constantly take shortcuts, people are going to start to pull you up on it. I have done it in the past. I'm trying not to do shortcuts these days. I'm trying to do a much better job. At the end of the day, I still want to be building bikes quickly, but I also don't want to be shipping crap bikes out the door. Job done. We'll see you tomorrow. Well, it'll just be one video for you guys, but for me, it'll be like a whole week. So, welcome to my life. Well, it was worthwhile giving it a go, but it looks like my radiator fix didn't work. It's actually leaking from one of the points. You can see it leaking down here. If I pull this off, you can see right there, fluids coming out of this very top point here. The other ones look like they're okay. I mean, there might be one right there where it's leaking as well. So these 2 points on this side are leaking. This is expensive. A new radiator, $1,468, unless I can find a second-hand one. Even so, I've now wasted my money on this one and waited 5 weeks to get it. We've got track day coming up, we've got dyno coming up on Thursday. Back to square one. So I'm also trying to figure out this radiator problem. I've still got these 2 pieces of fairing where I've had to reapply the resin over the cracks. And then I've sanded it with 240. Now I'm just giving it a rub down, and you'll see that right there was fully smashed up before, and now that I've put new resin on it and I've gone over it with 240 and roughly with 800 wet, it looks completely different. So now I'm going to wet it down again and go over it with 2000 and just give it a really good hand sand and just see if I can, 2000, it's been pre-soaked for about 20 minutes, and see if I can get that gloss to come back. It's not going to be perfect, but it's going to be a damn sight better than if I left it all cracked the way it was. And we may still polish this as well, so I can put polish on top to really bring that shine out. But look at that. Nice and shiny, almost looks like it's new. this is the last clip of me working on the bike. The bike is essentially done. Yes, I've got to put the new radiator on when that arrives. Yes, I've still got to finish off some of the clear coat on the fairings, but 10 minutes between coats, I've got time to talk to you. So next clip, when I roll to it in a few seconds, you're gonna see the bike completed with all the bells and whistles and fully put back together and in its final state. Yes, we're still gonna do a dyno and a couple other things, but that's cool, that'll happen in due course. Ready? Now. Okay, so another bike, pretty much finished. Well, it is finished and I couldn't be happier. Probably the newest bike I've built and probably the bike with the most amount of carbon I've ever built and probably ever will build. So next up for this baby is a dyno test. We're gonna film that separately, and with any luck, we're also gonna be on track within 2 weeks at Sydney Motorsports Park on I think the 20th to 23rd of November. So if you're there, drop in and say hi. I'll either have this bike or the Panigale with me, but this bike's got a lot of stuff on it, and I really want to thank my sponsors. I want to thank Motor Garage and I want to thank Moto Mia Clean Ride Brisbane. You guys have been amazing throughout this build, and it couldn't have happened without you. So yeah, onwards and upwards, on to the next build. If you're not already watching it, we've got a 2023 R1, so make sure you tune into that. We've got massive, massive things happening for that bike, and it's going to be epic. And I almost forgot, it wouldn't be a superbike build without doing a startup.